Oh my God, did you see the interview yesterday with Bernie? It was so good because Dana Bash is truly a queen and was really exposing Bernie's misogyny.
Ugh, Bernie was on? I mean, I can't stand him. The way he was sitting at inauguration was really sticking it to women of color.
I mean, seriously, and I really don't want to watch Bernie right now, but I have to show you this interview.
The American people are hurting, and they want us to act. That's what our candidates ran for in this election. That's what the guys in Georgia won on. And we have got to reaffirm the faith of the American people in government that we can respond to their pain.
You mentioned that Republicans have used the so-called reconciliation process before, like in 2017, to try to kill Obamacare. You accused them of abusing the process back then. You said, quote, the function of reconciliation is to adjust federal spending and revenue, not to enact major changes in policy. But you alluded to this. You are the chairman of the Budget Committee, or going to be. You are already talking about using this tactic for things like paid family and medical leave.
Ugh, paid family leave? Gross.
For universal pre-K and childcare, for climate change, tuition-free college, eliminating student debt, and the $15 minimum wage.
$15 minimum wage? Has he taken Econ 101?
How is that not what you criticize Republicans for doing?
Well,
Yes, she got him. She's really showing how Bernie and his bros are basically Republicans.
Oh, please go to hell. Bernie is literally trying to save people's lives with this strategy. And you are trying to compare him to a Republican? I mean, really, you have got to be kidding me.
Democrats who have slim majorities in the House and the Senate, we got President Biden in the White House. If we do not respond now, yes, I believe 2 years from now, the Republicans will say, hey, you elected these guys, they did nothing. Vote for us, and they will win.
One of the things that has seemed to have been a distraction from the pain you're talking about is you on the internet.
Yes, he was a distraction. This was supposed to be Biden and Queen Kamala Harris's day.
Yeah, and Lady Gaga and J-Lo.
Oh my God, yes, they slayed my life with their performances. And did you see Michelle Obama's outfit?
Yes.
Oh my God, she came to work.
Oh, but it was all stolen. The day was stolen by Bernie Sanders and his goddamn mittens.
God.
We are living in the Hunger Games. While the elite puts on a circus act, these stupid neoliberals idolize these people where millions of people are dying. They are the distractions. Bernie gave us hope that we would come out of this pandemic with Medicare for all. Also, J-Lo's performance sucked. I liked J-Lo's performance. Oh, get the hell away from me, Doug. All of you can go to hell.
Lady. I'm sorry I feel that way.
Johnny, let's go.
Yeah. Welcome to the Far Left Show, we break it down, zooming through political news in the lockdown, talking to people, solving issues. These are the kinds of views you won't see on your news. Stick around the show, cause things could get crazy. We even have chihuahuas named Dougie and Daisy. We're called the Far Left to scare the neoliberals, but interview candidates from primary to general. We're the Far Left, break it down. Come and join us here and now. Johnny, Daisy, Natalie, Dougie, talk issues affecting this country. We're the Far Left, break it down. Come and join us here and now. Johnny, Daisy, Natalie, Dougie, talk issues starting now.
Hello.
Yo.
Nice to see you, man. This is Tom Farley. This is who actually created the theme song for the Far Left Show, the new one. And he's a friend of mwilliamette. We actually went to Willamette together. It's nice to see you.
Sure.
Happy to have you on, man.
Yes, sir. Thank you for that. I didn't realize we were going straight into the intro right at logging on, but I'm glad. And Natalie, it's nice to meet you too. I'm seeing some of the Far Left show that y'all have done, and it's been really cool. Like I saw the one with your grandparents, or was it? Or yeah, that was cool. Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, the song is amazing too. When Johnny first showed me, I was like, that is so perfect. So thank you so much for making it.
Thank you. I was thinking about this. In hindsight, what I should have done is just a prank is just taken like an Eminem song and then just like taken an MP3 file of it, changed the file name and just sent it to Johnny and said, here you go, dude, I made a theme song. And just like
I would have known for sure, bro.
Yeah.
I'd have been like, dude, this is Eminem, man. I'd be like, I would, man, but copy strike. Yeah.
oh yeah.
Yeah. You have a YouTube channel too. And it's Tom Farley, right? It's just Tom Farley?
Tom Farley Music.
Tom Farley Music. Okay. And you've been posting stuff on there. Do you want to tell people a little bit about sort of what you're doing with music? Because I know you've been working on that a whole lot.
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing a lot of different stuff with music. Like when COVID wasn't so serious, now in the Bay Area, all the counties have closed. But before they were like closed a lot of different stuff like indoor dining and stuff. So it's like the only options to perform around here, there is none. So really, so like I was street performing for a while and just I have written my own songs for a long time, play guitar, sing. But now I'm focusing more on like the recording side of things. So I'm recording some demos right now and doing various little musical projects like the jingle that we came up with, which was fun creative project, and working on like a Christmas video too, coming out hopefully soon, maybe next week or so, because it's the holiday. So just kind of like combining music and video stuff wherever I can. I've done some video editing stuff and I kind of produce a little bit too. So it's just like this whole bucket of skills that I'm just slowly hacking away at, I guess, between producing and performing and stuff like that. So a lot of different stuff.
Yeah. I was telling Natalie she should get on one of your tracks. She's a really good singer.
Okay.
She's like never recorded anything before, but she has a really good voice. Like she was in choir and everything.
Thanks.
But
Oh, good.
yeah, you two should collab for sure.
I'm down to, I'm game for anything, dude.
Yeah.
I'm game for any kind of collab.
I always see like on your story, you're collaborating with a bunch of different artists and like even other rappers too. Is that a thing?
Yeah, like a little bit. There's like a friend of mine, like a friend from high school, his younger brother is kind of like makes a lot of his own music. He's like really good, actually. He has a lot of streams on Spotify and stuff, but he's like doing stuff. So yeah, we were like collaborating at my house and just kind of messing around one evening, but came up with some stuff and like, yeah, so collaboration always brings out like a lot of good ideas. Like I've collaborated on songs before, getting lyrical help and chord kind of help, because that's always trickier than what I know. I mean, I didn't study music. I've kind of like in school, I wasn't a music major. I was a music teacher at a summer kids theater camp called Christian Music Theater. And I was like, that's where I learned piano, and I like was teaching. That's kind of where I learned how to sing, but really I learned how to sing from a cappella and choir and stuff. So my like musical theory comprehension isn't like, my ear isn't like perfectly trained. So it's like having someone else that has like a critical ear to listen to and have that second pair of ears is always like essential. I never work on something and put it out completely myself and put it out there, because I just don't, I'm not a genius. No one, and like so few people are a genius, you know?
Yeah, and I think Johnny was telling me that you like to tie politics into your music. So I was just first wanted to know, like, what was your journey into, I guess, realizing the importance of politics and the relevance of it to everyday people's lives?
Yeah, I was thinking about this because it's like, because when I knew Johnny at Willamette, I was like aware and stuff, like, and I always have leaned pretty liberally, but I wasn't really going to a lot of like events or things like on campus. And Willamette is an echo chamber, and Willamette is a very whitewashed like school, and so politics there can sometimes feel a little bit like, all right, like what are we doing here? Like what are we accomplishing and stuff? I guess like afterwards it's just kind of like following the election and just following stuff about that as it got closer to the election and how important it was to vote this year. That was where like, I started to tie in politics a little bit to my music, and I made this little like jingle called like Register to Vote. And it was just this like silly little thing I had in my head that like I just kind of got out like my ukulele and just kind of like put it together with like a trap beat I found online. And then just kind of came into like a little song of mine. So that's kind of something I definitely want to do in the future. I think doing more like heavier lyrical stuff, like it could be on the side of rapping or just kind of like singing melodies, but like with more like conscious lyrics. I really like that kind of messaging. Like one of my favorite like artists that I think does that is like Kendrick Lamar. It's just like unreal ability, like songs like The Black of the Berry, or just like anything on to Pimp a Butterfly, anything from Damn really like just summarizes the life that he grew up in and how so many people in this country are really just oppressed, I guess. Like I've seen it firsthand in various ways. And so tying into my music, I mean, I'm just one person and I'm a white straight man. So that kind of sometimes like I find this balance of like, do I need to speak on this topic? Am I taking up space from something? Like it's always a tricky thing. Like, what do I talk about here? Like, what is unique to me and my experience that I can bring to this without stepping on toes here or saying something that is like not true to what I've actually experienced and stuff, you know? So, I mean, I've definitely like, I love to talk about my reality and stuff. And I think politics just plays a major role into people's lives. Like, just I think especially this summer, this year, I mean, I think everyone kind of got that taste of it, and so it kind of slowly seeped just a little bit more into me and was just water on those seeds that were already in me, you know.
Yeah. Could
Kind
you
of
describe a little bit like your personal ties with people, like people that have been affected by either the economic environment or COVID-19? Like, do you know anybody personally? Any sort of stories?
Yeah, I mean, right now I'm doing a lot of work with a friend of mine who's actually recovering from homelessness. And he basically became homeless. He wasn't homeless for very long, but it was just a combination of factors that just it was kind of like his choice to go that way, but really not. And like he's had some mental health issues that have just from so much trauma that he's faced, like losing his mom and losing his sister, like just stuff that's just like super hard for anybody. And on top of that, like the economic stress. And then it's just kind of something that to me, when I've been working with him and we're like trying to get resources and stuff, like it's just anything government related is bureaucratic and it just takes so much longer than you want it to take. Like we needed healthcare stuff, we wanted healthcare stuff from the beginning, and it's now like next week we'll be able to like start into like psychiatry and like talk therapy and stuff. And it's just like, oh, it just takes so long. And we put together like a GoFundMe that a lot of people from Palo Alto, it's a pretty well off area. So like people contributed and we raised like $40,000, which is like insane. I did not expect it to do that, but it's still like we're in a hotel room right now. And it's just like to get into affordable housing in Palo Alto, so hard. Like affordable housing anywhere, so hard. Like there's just so few resources out there. And I guess like the harder part actually is more like how do you let people know how to use them? Basically, how do you connect them? Because there are some stuff out there and we do have a government that does provide some things, but they don't make it like a convenient thing for you. So I guess I've just experienced it firsthand, what it's like to need resources and to just, it's just how hard it is, how bureaucratic it is to get them. And that's something that with my economics background, I mean, I see it almost as just like a product of capitalism and tasting a little bit of socialism, but seeing like if this was just done better, like what would our society be? Wouldn't we all be a lot better off if we had community members that just got the help that they needed for the time that they needed it and then got back to work? Like it's a no-brainer to me.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Did you want to mention a little, talk a bit about him mental health? I feel like that's something you
definitely. I know you and Johnny have talked about, you know, the importance of treating mental health correctly, like the first time, as you were saying. And I just feel like, especially during this time with COVID, it's more important now than ever to put a lot of emphasis on mental health, because right now we're all so isolated from each other. And, you know, Johnny and I are both teachers, so we've seen the mental health effect of distance learning on teachers, but mostly students, you know. So it's just a really hard time for them right now. So I don't know if you wanted to talk a little bit about like your journey with mental health, maybe like your own, and like you said, your friend who you're helping out right now. Yeah, if you just want to talk about that.
Yeah, well, you actually kind of sparked like a little thing in me because like so my mom's a teacher also. And I maybe have told Johnny that, but she's a sixth grade teacher, and she's been leading her union for like going back to school and stuff. And just kind of a thought that's on my mind is just how in the Bay Area where we're all like able to work from home, like working from home is a luxury. Like you have to understand like people that are like farm workers, they are not working from home. You can't do that. So to like have a space at home where you feel comfortable because we're spending so much time here all the time is really like you have to kind of think about like that's not possible for everyone. And so that's why I think it's hard to see it because we're all so like isolated now, and but we don't see people that are like really depressed and really anxious by just because of their living situation. And like the economics of COVID has just like, I mean, it's we're going on month like 10 now, and it's that's a long time for stuff to be shut down and to be in at home so much. And so
Sorry.
for me, yeah, what's going on?
Well, I was gonna say, well, you actually finish your thought. I'll mention it right after. Sorry.
I guess like being at home and isolated like is really bad for you. And that was, I mean, yeah, like it's not always bad for you, but if you're doing it all the time and too much, like it does get you in your head too much. And that is when like, yeah, like for me in the last like 6 months, like I was just like such a like mess. And like after graduating school, I felt like I was like totally not knowing what I was doing and like didn't know how to get on track to what I was doing, and feeling like I was putting so much pressure on myself to like do actually like music and stuff and like succeed at it because that's how you can make it your job. But then now that I've kind of like let that pressure off and been like, you know, maybe I just get a job and maybe I do music on the side and maybe I'm happy with that, and don't see it as like if you put any pressure on yourself to be something and say like I have to find my purpose without actually just like living and like walking in it, then it's just like getting in your head. And so that was what happened for me. Like really where I had a big mental health battle was after graduating school, and like the year and a half after graduating school up until like right now. And now I feel much more like I'm on flat feet, and like you know I've like gotten on therapy and meds and stuff, and like we kind of like I've told Johnny about that, and we kind of connected over that like that's really when you're open about it and you're open about yourself, there's no symptoms, you know, it's not like a cold, you know, have a runny nose, but like you can see it sometimes, like, and you just have to like give them whoever's going through that kind of like that extra care and just like give them something that like cheers them up at least for like a little bit. But tying on a grander scale than me, it was just interesting what you're talking about like how you're seeing your students be affected, because students that were already economically vulnerable, you have to think about the factor of mental health into their economics. Like if their parent is too depressed to like work, that's going to get in the way. And if they can't get the help that they need through therapy and meds or whatever kind of other medicine they need, it's going to be tough for that family. Like I had a friend of mine that's his dad got depressed for a long time, and then he was kind of like couch surfing and stuff for a while. So you know, mental health is totally tied to economics. And I think it's important for us to all be like open about it, because it's not like we're perfect all the time, especially in times like these.
I think there's two movies that I personally really love that talk about mental health and especially the isolation of American society. The first is Requiem for a Dream, if you've seen that. And the second one is Joker. I feel like Joker really sort of captured mental illness and like being isolated and kind of the psychotic nature of it. It makes you feel like you're crazy, you know, for society. There's a lot of aspects, like there were cuts to mental health programs that got him off of his meds in Joker. But I feel like there's that sort of, that governmental power is so strong where it's like they could improve people's lives. But right now, in my opinion, especially a lot of marginalized communities are not getting that help. And so sometimes it really trips me out. Like sometimes thinking about society, like where we are right now, like we're okay. But there's people, there's another movie, I don't know, I'm kind of a movie nerd sometimes, but The Platform, which is like, it's literally like a hierarchy, but it's like a allegory for the hierarchy of capitalism. And what's happening is food they get like a buffet at the top platform, and
Uh-huh.
every day.
Oh,
And
wow.
at the top platform, they'll eat some, but they have to save it for the rest of the people all the way down to the bottom. And so what happens is like the food at the very end starts to like, there starts to not be that much food at all. So people have to like scavenge, and sometimes they kill each other and eat each other. And then like the next month, the platforms change. And so what I'm thinking is, okay, I feel like right now we're living in a time period where like the underclass, the really bottom rungs of society, are in chaos mode. And it's like, it's so hard to do things right now because of that isolation. Because if we go out, there's a chance we could become, we can get COVID and spread that, which almost makes things even worse. So I feel like that sort of, that isolation, that sort of affects my mental health a little bit right now.
Wow, that's a trippy movie. I definitely, is that like a thriller? Like,
Yeah.
wow, I want to see that.
Netflix, right?
I think it's on Netflix. Yeah, it's like a
No, I know what I'm watching tonight. All right, awesome.
yeah.
Well, what's funny, like, I guess about just like in these times with that and mental health and isolation is like, I've seen more and more in Palo Alto, like the homelessness here is really interesting because there's a ton of RVs, and there's probably a lot in LA too, but like RVs, like there's this one street, one road called El Camino Real, and it goes, it's like a main pipeline that's not a freeway, but it goes like all the way from San Jose to like San Francisco almost. And like this one stretch in front of Stanford University, like this super wealthy university, great school, is like this line probably like a quarter mile long of RVs. And there's another thing like that in like Mountain View, a city close to me. So like that, there's so much like that kind of isolation, like just is like when people are forced to be out and stuff, like homelessness is really lonely. Like the big killer is just boredom, is what I've seen. And it's just like giving people resources. Like I say, like if we just had things that, if we just gave these people like the coverage that they needed for going through a hard time and treated it more like a collective community of like, we're looking out for other people that just have unfortunate things happen to them, similar to if unfortunate things happen to us, we would want someone to help us because those were circumstances that we could not control, right? So it's just like with times like these, like with what it didn't government just pass like a $600 stimulus check.
Yeah.
Like it's like that's not going to help us. Like that's going to drive people more into just not paying their rent and add on all this emotional burden on top of being isolated too. So it's like I just really strongly believe in things like universal health care, because if you just had stuff like, if you just gave people that help to get them productive again and had stronger systems like that, then a lot of this could be prevented. But I'm also just one person, and this is a really big issue, the pandemic, and I don't know exactly how it could have been done better, but I know that it feels like our government now is just kind of like giving up since Trump defeated and stuff. So it's like really no help here in capitalism. That's the big downside.
And not only that, but it's lack of support and help. But to go even further, it's also like criminalizing people who need help. Like I don't remember what the bill or law was, but we learned about this law where like people couldn't like sleep or sit like on the street or something, so they would get like, it was obviously targeting unsheltered people, because those are the people who have to go somewhere, so they're gonna just lay or sit on the street, but then they were going to jail. And same with like substance people who are addicted to substances, that's criminalized instead of treating it as like, you have this this obstacle, like let's help you. It's criminalizing and putting people away instead of helping them.
I mean, definitely the motto is what is it, service not criminalization, I think that's what it is. Also there's this, you say when you talk about the government and with that we need universal health care, there's actually a huge argument going on in the leftist community right now. And there's Jimmy Dore, who's this comedian. I'm not sure if you've heard of his name before, but he's this guy who tends to be on the Bernie side, sort of like a provocateur. He's a sort of a comedian in the George Carlin vein, but he has called for AOC and the Justice Dems to withhold their vote for Nancy Pelosi for House Speaker unless they get a vote on the floor for Medicare for all. And so this argument that Jimmy Dore put forth has been taken by a lot of different people, Brianna Joy Gray, Cornel West, a lot of different progressives. But there's also people that are now sort of attacking him as that we have to wait. I think AOC said something like, we have to wait. We can't just get on the floor and vote for it now. But the strategy is that if we have Medicare for all on the floor to vote, then it'll show who's willing to vote for it and who's willing to withhold Medicare and universal health care to people during a deadly pandemic. So the idea is people will be sort of exposed for who they really are and if they're corrupt or not. So that's sort of a huge argument that's been going on the past like week or two, I'd say. But I've been sort of annoying people, like messaging them about that, because I think that idea still hasn't burst forward yet. And I really want it to, because I feel like it's extremely like vital for right now, based off of everything, economic recession, pandemic. But do you think that might be strategic to actually withhold a vote for Nancy Pelosi unless she calls for that floor vote?
I don't know. The first thing I thought of when you said like withholding votes and stuff is like, it's almost like blackmail, which is like, just doesn't feel very good. But I guess like when it comes to passing something like that, as long as if there's no infrastructure like created yet, some kind of system of universal health care, we all obviously have had Obamacare, so it's not like it's rocket science to like recreate. But I mean, I really hope that gets passed as soon as possible. If that's kind of answers your question, like I hope that, especially right now that like the pandemic is raging, that we get universal health care, and however we need to do it, I hope they find a civil and good way to do it. Mm-hmm. So, but one thing like to Natalie's question was like, I was thinking, you know, a big downfall of capitalism and talking about criminalizing people that are homeless and stuff like is like our prison system and our healthcare system, like privatizing those, you have to think of like how backwards and corrupt that makes those industries. Like a privatized prison system then is for profit, so you get profit from putting people in prison and keeping them in that cycle of prison. So you're totally right that homeless people just end up going to prison for like nothing, and they're just like so lost. They're like, what am I doing? And that was almost gonna like happen to my friend, basically, because he's just walking around not doing anything, and people were gonna think he was like up to something during the pandemic, and people were already kind of on edge about people. So but then like, and so like, yeah, just giving people some resources to like rehabilitate them and put them back to being productive people. That's the only thing that I'm about, is just creating, I guess people, the super far left people will say you don't even need to be productive to have basic rights. And I would agree with that, actually. Like, I think like just housing and water and Wi-Fi, things like that, you don't need to be productive to have those things. Those are just a basic human right to be on the path towards life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But like having, I don't know, people should like be doing something with their life. Like, and that's what I want people to have access to, is resources that help them do that. And I think universal healthcare helps us do that, and it'll create a stronger economy. I think we'll invest more in our infrastructure and get a return on investment. And same with like private prisons. I mean, like, we don't need that to be privatized, because.
Would you abolish prisons?
That's a good question. I don't feel like I'm educated enough to say yes or no, but I think because there's so many people that don't need to go to prison, I think the thing is like, what about the people? I look at things from a very like almost like therapy oriented mindset of like, even killers, like I think of like, why are they killing people? Like maybe we should go to the root of their home life instead of putting them in a space that makes them even more violent. Yeah. So it's like, if it's not, I just think like abolish prisons, defund the police. I think it's more just like reform the prison system and like reallocate the police,
Yeah.
which like I'm not sure if that's taking a centrist like neoliberal stance on things, but I think that that's more accurate as to like what's practical in the short run to kind of fix problems, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think when Michael Moore, he visited different prisons in Europe, and they were killers, and they actually, some of them lived in places where they would cook their own food, and they'd be around all these sharp knives and tools that could kill them. But of course they didn't, because they're enjoying their time there. They actually like being in the prison, and they live their lives pretty well, and they come out and they're good citizens. I mean, I think something that people tend to forget is that if you're in prison and it's shitty and the guards are shitty and the people around you are angry and there's fights breaking out, the food's trash, you can't work out, you can't go to school to better yourself, how are they going to come out any better than they were before? They could come out a lot worse. And I think people that go to prison for shitty things like weed, I mean, there's rich kids that have been doing it forever. I mean, since weed was even a thing. So it's like, I don't think that prison is necessary in its current state. And I think we should take more dramatic measures, such as like Europe, to actually sort of rehabilitate rather than incarcerate.
Yeah, 100% agree with rehabilitation rather than incarcerate. I don't think any person is like wrong for any specific, there's no such thing as like a good and bad people. Like good and bad exist in the same coin. The same people that run, well, let's say like the same people that murder people, they could do charity work. Same with mega churches could do a lot of horrible stuff like that they've been convicted of and stuff. And they could also do a lot of charity work. Like good and bad exist on the same coin in the same body. So incarcerating and saying you are a bad person, sticking that label on, you are a murderer, you are this, it's just gonna create that. And do people want that? Like, are people at the top, do they want people that are murderers to be labeled as that, especially if they're like people of color? They might just be like overtly racist and like using the system to do that. Sometimes there's also like passive racism with that, just like there's this system here, it's come out because it's old, but we don't really want to fix it because our lives are fine right now. So it's like I think like coming at it with like a sympathetic thing of like, let's go for rehabilitation is actually a much more practical stance of things rather than like, I think a lot of people honestly on the left, like think that we, like, they're always like, you know, the people that we went to school with, you know, like at Willamette, like people are just like reform everything, fix everything. And it's like, who are you to say that when there's people that have been working their whole life and people like AOC that are trying to push the boundaries of that, you know, like, and trying to push it forward. Like this takes so much time to convince people of this kind of concept, which I totally agree on. It's just that it takes time to get us there.
Yeah, I think it's necessary to have both sides. I think the people pushing the hardest, I feel like it's a good thing because they're pushing for ultimately what we all want. Sort of like
True. Yeah.
Like slavery abolitionists like John Brown taking over like the ferry, Harper's Ferry. It was like
yeah,
and they all got killed. Like they got shot and killed in public, but they were like the criminals at the time, you know. But then eventually they had the Civil War, which was like literally about that. So it's sort of it's sort of like talk about these ideas and the time will come. At least that's sort of how I see it. But I think the last question I had for you was how. I've never been to Palo Alto. Have you been to Palo Alto?
I've never been.
Yeah, what is it like in Palo Alto, and what do you see a lot of people's like political views being like there?
Yeah, good question. Like I think I've seen it a lot more since I've been here, and I would say the majority of people here are like centrist liberals, neoliberals. They're neoliberals. Like they'll put the sign up in front of their house, they'll put up the picket sign, like, and it'll say like they're voting for Biden. Or they like blacklight. I haven't seen a single Trump poster since I've been here, so that gives you a sense of like it's definitely far from that. Although there was a parade that went through that same street, El Camino, a while back, and I was like, "Wow, okay." Like I don't know if they're from here. Oh no, I did. There was a Trump parade that actually went through downtown Palo Alto when I was there once, a couple days before the election. So, and they were like people looked like they were from my area, so like I was just like, okay. So there are neighbors here that are Trump supporters too. And it's like a very interesting thing how it's like, we're still part of America. We're still connected to that. it's not like a little bubble, because it kind of can get like that between Stanford and all the tech and stuff. Really nice weather. Like people really go in their little bubbles here. So there's a lot of like cookie cutterness, I would say. A lot of people that have quote unquote won the rat race, as some might say, that have like climbed up the ladders at these big tech companies like Facebook and Google. And now their kids are going to the best schools in the country, best public schools in the country, and there's a very cookie cutter definition of like success. Like you go to a really good school after high school and then get a job in something like tech, and then you can move back, and then like you've made it. You got your good job and you got your good pay, and you're just climbing up and up. And some people just like are cool with it. Like they'll just ride it and they're happy and stuff. And I think as long as they're happy, that's good. But I think when it comes to like political stance, politics, their standing, I would say they're just really, a lot of people here are wrapped up in like their comfort. And I think they've seen the more of the RVs that have been popping up now. And they're seeing like just how much COVID has had an effect on things, that we're pushing for more like affordable housing through city council, which is a good start. But like, and people came together for Black Lives Matter movement, like tons of people for like at the Palo Alto March. It was actually a really big one. And they put up like a whole Black Lives Matter mural on the street in front of City Hall. But then they ripped it down 3 months later. I was like, what the fuck? Like, it was like, I was shook. I saw it like a month ago. It was like they had like scraped it up. I was just like, are you kidding me? Like you just did it for like 4 months and then you're done. So it's like that. It's like, we'll support these things when they're hot, like everybody else. And we will fight to make some change, because there are some people here that believe that. But there are a lot of people that are like, I think America's like structured all right, because we're comfortable and we'll give as much as we want, but we don't want to like really have we don't really want to give someone exactly our life. We don't want to give away everything we have. And it's like, and I know that give and take thing is hard in things like in your own life, of like how much, when Black Lives Matter was to a head, like when George Floyd died, should I give away, how much should I donate to the Minnesota Freedom Fund and stuff like that, So people have money and they will give, but it's like to an extent. And I guess just like with the amount of comfort and bubbleness here, it's hard for people to really have empathy about what some people are going through. So there's that lacking as well.
Did that 40,000 for the GoFundMe come from the Palo Alto community?
It did. So there's an example, like people did donate like a lot of $500 donations, like a lot of, and a couple $1,000 ones too. Like people do give, especially when it's their community. Like they really want to support each other, which is pretty cool. And like, that's what I've grown to appreciate more about this place.
Yeah. It sounds like mutual aid, some sort of mutual aid organization would be pretty good around there, honestly. I don't know, it's probably already happening, but I feel like mutual aid's super good idea. There's a lot of people doing it in LA.
Especially in wealthier areas too.
Yeah.
It's like distributing wealth from people who have a lot of money to people who need it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I feel like you'd be pretty good if you ever tried to do that. I'm thinking about doing something.
I like that. Yeah, I've actually, so I've actually been interested as far as my next career plan. I'm going to write a note about that mutual aid. That's cool. Yeah. But like, I'm kind of interested actually in making my day job, I guess, like case management, homeless case management, because I'm pretty good at that. And like it pays. I mean, it's not horrible. Like it's not horrible at all. It's actually pretty good for a young person. Yeah. So, but then eventually nonprofit work, I could definitely see myself going into that. And music will just tie in wherever, honestly. I don't know. Like it could be my whole thing. It could be my side thing. I've just put too much pressure on myself before with it, and like it sucks, and that is not what I want. I want it to be fun. So as long as it's fun, I'll keep doing that. But I also want to do good work.
Yeah, and your music already sounds fun and incredible. And like listening to you, I'm like, this guy's got it all figured out, honestly. Seriously? With music. Your music is really good, and it's like, it's interesting hearing that other side where there's a lot of maybe stress involved or sort of anxiety around getting it just right. Honestly, as a like sort of an outside viewer, like it's I love it. And if anybody else wants to listen to it or learn more about your music and what you're up to, where can they check online?
They can go on my SoundCloud, on my YouTube. I'll give you a link or something that you could post in the editing. But yeah, SoundCloud and YouTube are my best two right now. Also Instagram, I post a lot of stuff there. So you can go little teasers. Soon to be having stuff on Spotify. I don't know how. I haven't had stuff put up there yet, but I will. Well, you can also listen to the Headband Project, which is my acapella group. So that's all Spotify. That's like my one project that's up there, and that's done well. So yeah, I've got stuff scattered around and lots more to come in the future.
Thank you so much for being on, and we'll keep in contact. Sure.
Yeah, sounds good, y'all. Have a good one. I'll see you later.
you.
Thanks for having me.
Take care.
Bye.